Thanks, guys. Welcome to the Eagles face-off between the Republicans and Democrats. On my right is the College Republicans President, Joseph Beaver, and on my left, the College Democrats President, Scout Weber. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. President Weber, we will start with your response, and President Beaver will follow. Let's begin. What qualities do you think the American people need in a president at this time, and do you think the presidential candidates hold these qualities?
I think the people should be looking for someone who will unite them. The past 4 years, we've been really divided, and I think that President Trump has really solidified that divide and even encouraged it. So I think that the people are so tired of feeling like they can't trust their neighbors and they can't trust their leaders. So we just need someone that will unite them. And I think that Joe Biden could do that.
All right. And President Beaver, your response?
One of the things I think this election is about is the death of the citizen. And I think too often we look to bad personality types on both sides of the aisle and those people, those figureheads, to solve our problems. I think if we actually look to ourselves, to look to our neighbors, and look to our faith and communities, we could actually make something happen. Trust one another, and actually be the solution we want to see for our communities.
All right. How do you think President Trump has done in handling the COVID-19 pandemic?
I mean, he ignored it. He ignored it when it got here. He ignored it whenever the country was in lockdown, and he continues to ignore it even whenever him and his wife are sick with it. I think that he sort of solidifies that divide again. He doesn't even wear a mask whenever he should be. Something so simple as that. He acts like it's not important, but it is important to all of the lives of the American people. And yeah.
All right. Your response, Joe?
I look back to 2008, and President Obama didn't ignore an economic crisis, but instead he went with a message of hope. And I don't think you could say the same about Trump in that he's ignoring this kind of a situation. I think it's a problem that people do need hope, even if it is unrealistic. I think people need some sort of motivation like that. I think you do need to hear good numbers as well as bad. I have my criticisms of him, but since the beginning, he has invoked many different measures to protect the American people, shutting down, travel from China and the European Union, and expanding our production capacities by harnessing private innovation. I think you need somebody that has, the motivating factor, the hope. But you also need somebody that's going to actually get things done and not just be an empty promise.
What is your view on President Trump wanting to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, and how do you think that is in response to a global pandemic happening right now?
Yeah, I think that is totally irresponsible. As a young person, the Affordable Care Act, it lets people stay on their parents' health insurance until the age of 26. Prior to that, if you were 19 and out of college, then you had to find your own means of health insurance. And I just can't imagine having to do that for myself right now. I think a lot of us could relate to that. So that's the number one thing that the ACA has done for me. And during a global pandemic, young people with pre-existing conditions, people who just can't afford their own means of health care, that provides just such a peace of mind having that there. And without it, the cases and the deaths would have been so much worse than what they already are.
Mm-hmm. President Beaver, your response?
Well, I think there's an assumption that's being made here that you're getting the quality and you're getting the quantity of health care through the Affordable Care Act. That just simply isn't true for everybody. And, a lot of people have benefited from it. But me personally, I was forced off of my dad's insurance because of the government mandate that it wasn't up to their standards. I was forced onto my mom's, which actually had less coverage, actually had higher premiums. The president has been clear that he wants a replacement. And the fact is that we need people to actually work together in actually getting, health care that is good, that is of quality, that is of quantity. But it doesn't actually dictate what that coverage has to look like for every American. Everyone's different. We have a thing in our country called, free association healthcare plans, which we can actually pool your money together with your friends and your neighbors and actually reduce your premiums. I think free association like that, and if the president could encourage things like that, or organize it in some way, through federal legislation. I think that would be far superior to the Affordable Care Act, which actually forced everyone into one pool and actually rose premiums for everybody.
All right. With the economic decline because of the pandemic, how do you think President Trump has done in preserving the American economy during this pandemic?
I think that the economy is one of the only things he prioritized during the pandemic. He gave tax cuts and corporate bailouts to big corporations, but he refused to give that care to the American people, and he fought against providing extra unemployment benefits to all the people who were laid off during that time and who are laid off. I think that he really just prioritized the economy, and he was willing to sacrifice lives to open up the economy. And I think that we need someone who will prioritize lives over the economy, because without the people, the economy is meaningless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Joe, your response?
I think you're thinking the economy is something exterior to us. You're the economy. I'm the economy. It's our livelihoods, and we need those actually up and going. This summer I worked at Lowe's, in retail, and that was the economy. I depended on whether, manufacturers were actually able to give us products, where people are actually going to buy those things, where Lowe's could actually pay me money. The economy is so entrenched with us that it needs to be prioritized. That sometimes you do need health measures to actually protect people, but people need economic measures too, more so than just a check. People take pride in their businesses, they take pride in their work. And when that goes away, you open up Pandora's box to so many more problems of mental health, divorce, and so many other issues that impact people more immediately than the virus.
All right, yeah. Do you think that there are certain ways that the COVID-19 pandemic has been politicized and been turned into a political tactic during this election? And if so, in what ways specifically?
I think that it has been turned into a political tactic, but I think that's because that's what the people want to hear. It's not something that's going to go away after the election, and it's not going to go away on New Year's Eve either. This is something that we need to take seriously, and we want to hear that our candidates are talking about it and discussing the plans to take care of it and taking it seriously. And so I don't think that there's anything wrong that it's become a political tactic. I think that's true, but it's what we need to hear, and it's what we should be talking about.
All right, and Joe, your response?
I would agree with that. I think people like reading hyperbolic headlines that the world is coming crashing down. We've talked about a lot of different things this year with wildfires and, the plague and all sorts of different things that really scare people. And I think our politicians and our figureheads are playing off of that. Okay. I think they want votes no matter what party you're part of. They want to get back into office. And it's easier to point fingers than to actually give the issue as it actually is. Whether President Trump downplays in certain instances or it's upplayed on our friends on the left. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's healthy for our republic. I don't think it's healthy for our friends, family, and our communities.
All right, yeah, thank you. And what do you think, especially with COVID-19 affecting the way that people are going to be voting with this election, how do you think it has been handled with people pointing fingers at both parties and saying that because of how it's going to be a mail-in ballot, that it will be rigged?
People have been voting via absentee for a long time now. I voted before. A lot of college students do. Military people do. And President Trump has before. It's a perfectly safe way to vote. I don't think that's something that we need to be encouraged about. If that's the way that you feel safe and that's the way you want to vote, I think that's what you should do.
All right, and Joe, your response?
There's a misunderstanding as far as absentee ballots, which I've done before. It's actually a really great thing where you can actually order your ballot and comes in and you mail it back in to Secretary of State or whatever, County Board of Elections. But there's a difference between that and mail-in voting as far as what we're talking about here in 2020. 2020, where you actually are, without being requested, sending out millions and millions of ballots. Now, there's questions as far as like fraud or misuse. Congressman Tulsi Gabbard, who ran in the presidential primary for the Democrats, actually proposed the bill that bans a practice called ballot harvesting. Now, ballot harvesting kind of sounds really, really freaky, but what it actually is, you can actually collect ballots for other people, up to 3. And that can be very dangerous if you're the one who's filling out the ballot and who is actually overseeing you filling out the ballot as you, one voter, as opposed to you filling out 3 other people's ballots. I think there are ways to go about this without blowing anything out of proportion. I think we should look at things like ballot harvesting as a problem in our election system. And I don't think it's a threat to democracy to point out problems like that. But being clear, I think we should very much focus in on what we've got, being that absentee ballots. I think that's very effective, very safe. You go in, you request it, you get it in, and you send it into the County Board of Elections. I think that's what we need to focus on as opposed to this mail-in voting, which I think can be very problematic.
All right, thank you. That's all the time we have for this edition of Eagles Face Off. Tune in again in an hour for the next debate segment. Back to you guys at the Election 20 update set.